It's college football season, which means you need the unbeatable coverage of Sling TV starting at just $35 a month. Sling has all the big games on all the biggest channels like ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN3, the SEC Network, the Big Ten Network, the ACC Network, and Fox, all at the best price. You can stream on any device. You can record up to 50 hours with your included DVR space, or you can pause and change your service anytime you want. Check out sling.com for special offers. Sling, the live TV you love for a price you'll love. Check out sling.com. Welcome to the Andy Staples Show, presented by Sling. I know I said I'd be back together with Ari for the Friday show, but unfortunately, Ari on assignment in Nashville, talking to a bunch of folks who handle recruiting for schools all across the country. And so he's getting some stories. He's getting some tips. He's getting all the hot scoop. And he's going to come back with a full report, I promise. But this gives us a chance to play an interview that is near and dear to my heart. This is a guy I've known for a while, and we've watched him kind of rocket to superstardom on the SEC Network and ESPN. Cole Cubelic, former Auburn offensive lineman. We're going to talk to Cole about offensive line play and about TV finally embracing the folks in the trenches in terms of people talking about the game when they get hired to be on TV talking about the game, and also just giving you a better understanding of what's going on in the trenches during the games, because I think that is one of the things that has been one of the happiest developments in college football television over the last, I would say 4 or 5 years, is it really feels like they're taking you deeper inside the game, and they are telling you what's going on in the offensive and defensive lines, where, let's be honest, that's where the real action's happening, and that's where the most important stuff usually is going on. So we're going to talk to Cole about that. He's going to explain how he got where he is and how he wound up on TV, having Jordan Rodgers as a broadcast partner, which, you know, for those, and again, remember, I'm not one of the people at The Athletic who watches The Bachelor and The Bachelorette religiously. I don't watch it at all. All my coworkers do, though. So they view Jordan Rodgers very differently. Like, I view Jordan as the guy who played quarterback at Vanderbilt, who just very obsessively breaks down QB play in the SEC for his job at the SEC Network. That's not how most of my coworkers view him. If they saw him, it would be like the Beatles running down the street, them running after him, because he is obviously a superstar in the world of The Bachelorette. He won the show, and they just got married this past summer. I know from what I'm told, those relationships don't usually land in successful marriages, but it sounds like this one's going to work. So that's pretty amazing. And Cole has some funny stories about what it's like to be on the other end of that, being the guy next to someone who is a superstar, not necessarily in the world of college football. But Cole's a lot of fun, and obviously Cole's an Auburn grad. And so very interesting situation at Auburn this year. We talked a lot on the show about what happened with Bryan Harsin in late January, early February, where there was essentially a coup attempt where they tried to fire him for free. They cooked up an investigation, didn't actually find anything, and he ends up surviving with his job, at least for now. And got up at SEC Media Day, said that, you know, some people tried something and it didn't work. But he now enters a season where success means you've got to have good games. You've got to win games against, listen to this list of coaches that Brian Harsin is going to be up against, that he needs to succeed against. James Franklin, Brian Kelly, Kirby Smart, Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher, like Mike Leach, Lane Kiffin. This is not going to be easy. This is going to be a very difficult year. But we're going to start a new segment on the show, and it's called What to Watch For, and it's presented by Sling. My what to watch for this week, though, is the Auburn quarterback competition, because Brian Harsin has a very interesting competition on his hands between two guys who played for other SEC schools first and are now playing for Auburn. You saw TJ Finley at Auburn last year. He's the one who replaced Bo Nix when Nix got hurt. But TJ Finley originally started at LSU. He's competing for the job against Zach Calzada. Zach Calzada, you remember, replaced Haynes King at Texas A&M when King got hurt against Colorado and wound up being the Aggies starter for the rest of the year, including in that win against Alabama. Now, Calzada was gutting it out through injuries all year. One of the weird coincidences of the transfer portal is that Calzada, who transferred to Auburn after the season, wasn't available to Auburn during the spring because he was recovering from shoulder surgery because of an injury he sustained playing against Auburn. That competition, though, will be very interesting. It'll go a long way toward probably deciding whether Bryan Harsin is Auburn's coach next year. We know about Tank Bigsby. He's obviously a fantastic back. They're going to feature the run game, but they've got to get something out of the passing game. And so is it going to be TJ Finley? Is it going to be Zach Calzada? TJ Finley last week opened a store on Amazon. He was, I believe, the first college athlete to have an NIL deal with Amazon. So he's got his own store on Amazon now where you can get TJ Finley branded merchandise. He's also got a partner shirt that I do love. It says lineman, and it's got a picture of a lineman in a three-point stance because quarterbacks need heroes too. And he's wearing that in the ad. So I do appreciate TJ Finley for that. But, he's got some TJ Finley branded T-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, pop sockets, the little thing that goes on the back of your phone covers. I don't know how many TJ Finley pop sockets he's going to sell at $14.99 a pop if he doesn't win the starting job at Auburn. So there's big business going on here as well. But I am fascinated to see who winds up winning that job. Is it Calzada? Is it Finley? It's sort of just a telling thing about the age of the transfer portal where you've got a guy who started at LSU and a guy who started at Texas A&M now competing to be the starting quarterback at Auburn. And that is what to watch for this week, presented by Sling TV. Go to sling.com for special offers. It's all you need to watch college football, and it starts at just $35 a month. So go to sling.com, check it out. And now it's time to hear from a guy whose job was never in doubt at Auburn, except for that year where they went through like 6 centers. Cole Cubelic joins the show. I'm looking fresh and freshly showered because I was just sweating my butt off with 2 of my best friends, Marcel Dinkins and Kirsten Ferguson. Who are those people? Well, if you're a Peloton member, you already know who they are. They're the people who motivate you. They're the people who get you through your workouts, who make sure that you are having fun, that you are listening to the best playlists as you go. I know what you're thinking. Isn't Peloton just riding a bike? No. It's bikes, it's treadmills, and it's so much more. It's a community that allows you to exercise when you want, how you want, where you want. I've been a Peloton app member for 2.5 years now. I started it during the pandemic, and it is fantastic. It works seamlessly in my life. I have a treadmill at home. I love to go on runs on the treadmill, but I live in Florida. I can run outside all the time. Well, guess what? I take my runs with Marcel, with Kirsten, with Andy Spear, with Bex Gentry, with me on the road. And I have them in my ears telling me when to speed up, when to slow down, when to push, when to pull it back. And it's tremendous. I travel a ton for work. Well, guess what? Even the most basic hotel gym can be a world-class workout facility with Peloton. If you've not done an Adrian Williams Thunder 45 treadmill boot camp, it will knock you on your butt in the best possible way. Jess Sims, Saturday 60 tread boot camp. It's tremendous. You can do it all with everything they have in even your most basic hotel gym. It's amazing. Plus, you feel like you're part of a community. You're looking at the leaderboard. You're seeing who else is working out with you. There's people all over the world working out with you, and that is motivation. It's motivation that moves you anytime, anywhere. You can try the Peloton Bike or Tread risk-free for 30 days, and you can learn more at onepeloton.com. New members only. Terms apply. Join up. You are going to have a blast. You're going to get in shape, and it's going to fit your life wherever, whenever, however you want it to. And come work out with me. You can find me, Andy Staples. I'm right there. I'll kick your butt, though. Warning you now. Cole Cubelic joining us. You see him on ESPN on the SEC Network. You hear him on WJOX with Greg McElroy, where he constantly makes fun of how little work quarterbacks do at practice relative to offensive linemen.
Fair though, right? So you heard my assessment.
Totally fair.
Yeah,
totally fair. And Greg took umbrage with you mentioning the specialists, but I had no problem with that because they do play PlayStation on the Jumbotron. They do try to kick footballs into garbage cans. They're basically inventing ways to pass the time while you guys are doing the drills.
I think he was just saying, why are you even paying attention to them? Which that's easy coming from someone who all he does is throw a football.
Because you wish you could do anything other than working on games over and over and over.
Like I said,
with the coach standing behind the offensive lineman, looking at the scrub offensive lineman. Do it, yes. If you're watching the YouTube, you're seeing me and Cole we look like the maestro here.
Yep.
But that's what, yeah. He points at you, then he points where you're going to go.
He does the wiggle.
Yeah.
Loop.
And of course.
And then another wiggle. Loop.
And of course, like in my case, I'm a bad offensive lineman, so I'm going to be the worst possible demonstration of a defensive lineman stunting. But whatever.
I think he was just he kind of went with, why are you even paying attention to them? And like what you were saying, especially towards the end of two-a-days, which are not a real thing anymore.
Right.
Or just late in the season, you want to be on the video tower. You want to be an athletic trainer. You want to be an equipment guy that's like putting the cones out or whatever.
You want to be a butterfly flying over the fence.
Give me any job other than having to go through the chutes and push the sled again, which is just misery.
The chutes are one of those just unique things that the rest of the sport doesn't get.
No idea.
And now D linemen understand them, obviously. But imagine, I try to explain this. Like, imagine someone created a torture device. I mean, it's you're trying to correct behaviors, and the behavior you're trying to correct is getting too high.
Sure.
And what better way to correct you from getting too high than to have an iron pipe that hits you in the head when you get too high?
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of helmets claying on the chutes, and it's not a good feeling. I've done it before. I don't really know. When you said that, I was thinking, okay, what other sport and activity in another sport can we compare this to? There is none.
No.
There's
maybe
nothing.
In boxing, when they start whacking the guy in the
they have a rope and
stomach.
you duck up and under the rope to work on your defense.
But when they start whacking the guy in the stomach to simulate body blows,
okay,
that's it.
Yeah, a little bit fair. Like maybe I've never wrestled. Like as in Greco-Roman wrestling.
I wrestled in high school.
They would have some drills
would be
uncomfortable.
They're way worse. I would say I wrestled in high school. I can't even imagine what college wrestlers go through at practice. Because, I mean, in high school, they were making us – you take someone of similar weight, and you have to carry them on your back up the stairs. Like, that's just a basic drill that they do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, wrestlers are nuts.
I was too fat to wear the singlet. I was embarrassed. And so that was number one. And then number two, when my friends that wrestled would tell me about all the conditioning.
Oh, yeah.
I just literally said to myself, I wasn't made for this.
So my offensive line coach in high school was the wrestling coach. And he said, you're coming out for wrestling. And I said, I think I have a newspaper club or something. And he's like, no, you're coming out for wrestling. And so the first practice I'm out there, they got us on the track, and we run a mile, and then they have us do all these sprints, and I'm just dying. So 45 minutes later, we're done on the track, and we start walking away from the track. And I look at the other guy, I'm like, that wasn't so bad. He's like, practice hasn't started yet.
Oh, boy.
I was like, what?
Well, that's kind of the Jimbo story I gave Greg the other day. Because everybody hears walkthroughs, and they're like, oh, those must be easy. So, like, not when it's 3 hours before practice begins. Like,
right.
Okay, we got to walk through at 1:15, and you look at the schedule again. Flex is at 3:45? What are we doing? And you're going out there just walking through plays. Yes, you're walking through them. But then, as offensive linemen, we're in our stance, and they decide they want to go coach somebody up. And
yes.
They just leave us in our stance for 7 minutes. It was like my quads are burning. My legs are trembling. You're profusely sweating.
This is where I thank God every day for Steve Spurrier, because that didn't happen under Steve Spurrier. Because it'll all work out. You block him.
We'll figure it out.
Danny will figure it out. So, oh my God. All your favorite college football teams are practicing now. The games will be upon us soon, and that means you need Sling TV, where you can watch unbeatable college football coverage starting at just $35 a month. Get everything you love about college football, rivalries, marching bands, bowl games, conference power rankings, all of it with Sling. Plus, Sling has all the big games on all the biggest channels like ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN3, SEC Network, ACC Network, Fox, and the Big Ten Network, all for the best price. And the best part is getting Sling is easy. It's easy to set up and even easier to use. You can stream on any device, phone, tablet, laptop, TV, you name it, and record up to 50 hours with your included DVR space. Plus, you won't get locked into a long-term contract. So if you're looking for the perfect place to spend your Saturdays, you need to take a look at Sling, where you can get everything you love about college football for the best price. Check out sling.com for special offers. Sling, the live TV you love for a price you'll love. Try it today. Visit sling.com. So the thing I love about you, Cole, is you've brought the offensive line sensibility to the TV broadcast. That's you are, when you are doing sidelines, you are watching the guys in the trenches. You are actually, analyzing it in real time, which is very hard to do at field level, by the way. And what I like about the crew you have with Tom Hart and
other guy,
Jordan Rogers, you are part of this booth, even though you're not in the booth.
Yeah.
And so how hard did you have to work to get people to say, okay, you can talk as much about the O-line as you want to?
It wasn't a lot of work, and there was a lot that went into it. I don't know if I'd call it work. I think Luganbill was the first one that ever did it. He was kind of he was the litmus test for this thing. And then Rocky Boyman did it for a little while. McShay does it in a little bit of a different way.
Luganbill and McShay are more from a scouting perspective, it feels like, yeah.
And, it's kind of morphed into, well, now I think Luganbill and I are the only two left because Boyman's in the booth.
Yeah.
And Roddy Jones is in the booth now. I've worked with guys that didn't necessarily like it. They didn't like me interjecting, talking in between plays. One advantage that I think I had, or we had as a group, is Jordan's second year calling games is when we were all put together. He did a little patchwork schedule the year before,
so he was
some
new.
SEC Network Plus games, right? So he had done it, but he hadn't done it for 10 years. Where he's like, no, don't mess with how I do this. And there were a couple of games early on where you could tell he was surprised that I would jump in, or he really had something he wanted to get to. We both did, but now I think he has an appreciation for, hey, I'm not watching that. So if something cool happens there, let him talk about it.
Yeah.
Because it might be cooler than what I saw the safety do when he went and made that tackle or knocked that pass down, and vice versa. If I know something that happened on the back end that's going to be he really needs to discuss, I'm going to let him do that. So and I give a lot of credit to him. I've done games with McElroy. He's the same. He loves having the sideline analyst say things. So, and Jordan, and he's not the only one. Tom will intentionally weave me in occasionally.
Yeah.
I've had some good producers. Bill Palladino does our games now. He does a great job of, if I get in his ear really quick, I'll be like, hey, Trey Smith just killed this guy. He'll be like, all right, Cole's got to come in.
Well, see, and that's good because I want to see the replay of that. Even if we don't hear from you, the fact that the broadcast cuts to the replay, watch Trey Smith maul this guy, and you understand better what happened in the game.
Well, that's one thing I had to learn, Andy, was that I can help, and I actually think, and you'll understand this completely, being an offensive lineman helped me with this role. There are a lot of instances, and it took me a while to learn this, that I can help our broadcast, but no one knows I'm there.
Right.
So I can just quickly in talkback say, Billy left tackle.
Right.
And sometimes he'll tell Jordan, sometimes he won't, but sometimes he'll tell Tom, and Tom will say, and watch the left tackle on this play. Yeah. Knowing damn well Tom's not watching the left tackle, but it allows the viewer to be able to go see it. So I give so much credit to those two guys for the synergy. We are friends, first and foremost.
Yeah, you guys get along, because a lot of times it's sometimes it's faked, or sometimes two people like each other and one person is sort of the odd person out. But you guys get along better than any broadcast crew I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, we when they come to Birmingham, Tom comes to my house. Jordan was at the house. Last year, Jordan at Media Days, I think we got to tonight, the last night, and we were walking out, and he said, hey, man, I don't have anything to do tonight. Can I just come to the house and hang out with you and your wife and the kids?
There you go.
I just don't want to be around any of this. And it was funny because I said, well, just so you know, we have neighborhood soccer tonight.
And so you got to come.
The literal soccer moms are going to be there.
Oh, yeah.
So and I will try to hide you, but that probably won't happen.
For those who aren't members, remember, I'm the only person at The Athletic who doesn't watch The Bachelor or The Bachelorette religiously. Jordan Rogers was on the show. He is one of the successful pairings.
Yes.
They are married now.
Won the show? Do you say won?
He definitely won the show.
He definitely won.
Yeah.
JoJo's amazing.
Yeah. So, yeah, I can imagine it is like Beatlemania if Jordan Rogers shows up at
We
neighborhood
hit him in
soccer.
the back corner of the soccer field. Our neighborhood soccer league there's literally probably a 30 by 20 foot grass area in between some houses, and to avoid the big to-do about organized soccer, we kind of go over there and have these little organized games that we play. I'm going to help you there.
There you go.
And we just put it together so the kids don't have to do everything all crazy. And so it was actually interesting that night because more dads came up to him than moms did.
Really? Asking questions about football.
Best part of that story is there was a guy in our neighborhood that I had never met. And 2 weeks ago, there was like a neighborhood barbecue, and I went, and he came up, and he's like, hey, I'm so-and-so, went to Georgia, love your analysis, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, cool. And the only reason I remembered him was because he's like 6'8".
Yeah.
So we're at the soccer game, and I'm kind of watching out of the corner of my eye, and he's making his way towards Jordan. I was like, oh, here we go. This guy's going to bother him. And I hear him introduce himself. He's like, hey, I'm so-and-so, went to Vandy. Nice to meet you. Go Doors. And I was like, now, wait a damn second.
Whoa.
I know good and well you told me you went to Georgia last week.
Here?
He graduate degree from Vanderbilt.
Very nice.
So I was like, okay, I'll allow that. But for a minute, I was really thinking, this guy's lying about attending Vanderbilt.
But why would he lie about why would he say he went to Georgia?
Right.
Well, when you say he went to Auburn for you, it is
Good point.
very interesting. But no, that's the thing. You got a successful Southern neighborhood.
Yep.
You got a Vandy degree in there. That's you're bound to have one.
Absolutely.
Well, that's what, like living in a college town like I do. You see a lot of flags in the neighborhood because all these professors went to like 8 different schools.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I always laugh when I'm dropping the kids off at school and I'll see somebody that's got like they've got the 3 stickers on their car, one for the undergrad, one for the grad, and one for the PhD.
So instead of the little family stickmen, they have like the school stickmen.
It'll be like Cornell, Johns Hopkins.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, I'm stupid.
We have an Iowa and an App State flag in my neighborhood that's always out, and my kids have asked me, Daddy, what is that? Because we talk school logos.
Oh yeah.
I was like, well, Iowa's Big Ten, App State, it's up in North Carolina, and so they're just kind of like, what? Why? Because they only see one.
Oh yeah.
Every Auburn, Ole Miss, Mississippi
Kids,
State,
if you
Alabama,
want to party,
they see thousands.
you go to App State.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There you go, and not have to deal with the humidity that we deal
That's
with
exactly
in the
right.
SEC.
So it is amazing to me how this is more, because I feel like you've brought the O-line into the consciousness now. And one thing that's happening in the sport at large is it used to be that O-line coaches couldn't become head coaches. They got pigeonholed and you deal with your 5 guys and I don't care about anybody else. But you're seeing now with Mario Cristobal, with Sam Pittman, I guess Kirk Ferentz is kind of the OG in college football. Mm-hmm. But it feels, Jeff Grimes, former Auburn O-line coach, is another OC at Baylor. He feels like he's in line for something at some point down the road.
App State, Georgia State.
Yep. Memphis.
Yep.
It's Ryan Silverfield.
Silverfield's
so
O-line coach.
It feels like there's more to that. And I do wonder, has something changed in terms of the personalities of those guys where they start thinking more globally? Or is it people just saying, you know what? These guys know what they're doing, and they coach the biggest position group.
Right.
Perhaps maybe they know how to deal with a lot of personalities.
I think that there are – football, to me, will always be inside out.
Yeah.
And so I think that there are more folks that are taking that knowledge and then extending it to not just being an O-line coach, but being a run game coordinator, then an offensive coordinator. And then you think about the way that you have to recruit as an offensive line coach. You have to recruit more different personalities, in my opinion, because you need different type guys.
Oh,
so it's a receiver. Give me hands, give me 4-4, give me a guy that can run routes. We'll figure the rest of it out.
Right.
It doesn't really work that way with offensive line. You got to have the right mentality, the right personality. And so I think that helps them grow as recruiters. And then I think the knowledge, nobody ever goes back to the offensive line. So if you coach offensive line, you'll branch out to maybe be an offensive coordinator one day. But who was the last offensive coordinator that went back to coaching offensive line? It rarely happens.
Doug Marrone, head coach to O-line coach, is the only one I can think of.
It doesn't happen often. So I think the knowledge of the interior, the knowledge up front, is just not something that a lot of guys who played receiver, played quarterback, are ever going to go get.
Right.
Whereas the O-line coaches are always looking to get coverage, routes, run game, blocking scheme, all of it. So,
well, especially you get those ex-centers who were watching safety rotation, or watching what the linebackers were doing. Ty Darlington, who played center at Oklahoma, got into coaching and specifically requested not working with the line. He wanted to branch out and wound up being the quarterback's GA at Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley. It was a pretty good education as a coach.
There's no doubt. I'll give you another kind of, I mean, it's way down the ladder, but kind of along the same lines. When John Schlarman passed away at Kentucky, Drake Jackson had been a 4-year starter.
Yep.
And he basically acted as the offensive line coach.
That's amazing.
Because he knew it all.
Yeah.
So, and he played center, and that was the guy that he knows all the blocking schemes, the calls, the checks. He knows everybody's assignment. So, yeah, I think it goes inside out. And because the offensive line coaches have a different, I always think most have a more magnetic personality. You just kind of have to. You can't make offensive line play fun very often.
You can't do that. And here's the other thing. Offensive linemen, because they typically are not people who want the credit, the tricks that most coaches use in recruiting don't work on them.
It's fair. Yeah.
And so I think, like, you look at Sam Pittman's personality. There's no BS with Sam Pittman.
Nope.
Like, he is genuine as they come, and I would imagine that helps him as a recruiter, whether he's dealing with an offensive lineman or a wide receiver or a quarterback, because he's telling you the truth.
Right.
It just emanates from him. That's who he is.
And I think that's the same. I mean, you mentioned Mario a little bit earlier, but if it's Brent Key, if it's Alex Mirabal, if it's Eric Mateos, if it's, I mean, all of those guys are really kind of mentally and emotionally cut from that same cloth.
Eric Mateos, I had a really interesting conversation with him. For those who don't know, he's Baylor's offensive line coach.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's a superstar in the making. And he was talking about the psychology of offensive linemen and how, but not on the field, but in recruiting. He's like, you got to understand, these guys, when they start getting all this recruiting attention, it makes them turn inward. It makes them feel bad because this is the kid who had to leave his shirt on in the pool at every birthday party since he was 8 years old.
God, that's good.
I was like, I had never even thought of that. That is incredible.
I'm so thankful for those sunscreen shirts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that anymore.
The rash guard.
Yeah, you're good. But I still have to wear that to cover up the fat rolls. So I'm like, yo, these things are like, now we're really taking care of our skin.
Do you remember what it was like in middle school when guys would be like, let's play shirts versus skins, bro?
No, we're good.
And yeah, like
I know my other 4 teammates. We're good.
The things, the machinations I would go through to get on the shirts team.
Right.
Like I'd be like, oh, who's gonna be the captains? Okay, who's shirts captain? Okay, all right. Hey, so listen, I know he might get me second, but any chance you could take me first?
I know.
Any chance?
I'm with you, and that's why I just told you earlier. I didn't wrestle literally because I had to wear the singlet, and I'm like, I'm too fat for that. Whether it was like just barely tucking the front of my shirt in to kind of hide the fat rolls, or understanding how to find tall shirts to hide a little bit.
You are not fat. Like you have slimmed down
a little
considerably since you
I
played.
used to think I slimmed down, and then I see you and Brandon Marcello, and I'm like, wow, I got a long way to go.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like I am now small, and it is very strange being small. Like I weigh what a cornerback. Well, not a cornerback, but I weigh what a safety weighs. Like that is weird.
You told me the other day you want to get to 200. By the way,
I don't think that's possible.
I
don't think it's possible.
Keep a little bit.
Well, here's the thing. If I get down to 200, I'm gonna take some pictures of whatever the abs look like at that point, and then just pack that 10 pounds or 15 pounds back on. That's
fine.
Yeah, because then those pictures live forever.
Just do the fighter weight cut.
Yes.
And like gallon, 2 gallons, no gallons, and then take the pictures the next day.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. And then when somebody's like, oh well, you don't look like that walking around. I'm like, how do you know? You see me walking around right now?
Picture of it. What else you want? Photographic evidence. That's all we need.
Exactly. No, it is strange though, because when you've been bigger than most people your whole life, and then you become smaller. But I will say that's one thing being a walk-on offensive lineman helps with, because you're bigger than 95% of the population, but you are tiny in your meeting room. You are the shrimp. I was the runt of the litter essentially. So,
absolutely.
And that's weird. That gives you a complex.
But that psychology that he mentioned, it's so real.
Yes.
And it's also, if it's a kid who's just playing offensive line in high school, like I was a defensive lineman, so I had a little bit of a different attitude. I was more the, wanted to be Bruce Smith.
You were an actual good athlete. That's what you were. It's okay to say that.
Compared to everybody else, I was. But if you're just an offensive lineman, you're still, you're not getting a ton. Even in high school, you're not getting a ton of credit. Nobody's really talking about you.
And,
You're not,
and the girls aren't coming
you
over,
have no
and they're not
stats,
talking to you about
nothing
that.
like that. So it's that carries on. And yes, I could fully understand where when you begin to get that attention, you kind of just crawl into your shell. You don't want it.
Yeah.
It makes you uncomfortable, and trying to siphon through that becomes a little bit of a difficult process.
Yeah, and so after that conversation with Eric, I was like, oh my God, I got to look at how these guys recruit completely differently.
That's
now.
really cool.
And but that's the thing. You got some smart dudes coaching the O-line, and so I'm glad just to see more of that represented in football media.
And I think that it goes back to that mentality of an offensive lineman, not getting credit, doing the dirty work. And then, too, I think working together.
Yes.
As an offensive lineman, I know, center's not going to be great without good guards. Tackle's not going to be great without good guards. Guard's not going to be good without good tackle centers because you're not always by yourself.
Right.
And if you don't understand how to work with synergy, with harmony, with chemistry, with continuity, it's usually not going to go. It's just not going to work. So an offensive line coach, I think, immediately just has it ingrained in him that we all have to work together.
Yeah.
I don't just have to tell the center he's great. I have to tell the guard, the tackle, the other guys, and then I have to tell them why other guys around all of us have to be great. And then I just think that little bit of humility that most offensive line coaches have, because you don't get a lot of that as a head coach, it involves more people.
Yep.
It makes more people feel important. And I think, too, you lose a little bit of that ego.
Yeah.
Now, every coach has an ego. All of them.
Yeah, you don't get there without it.
No. And that's why I love when people will say, why would that guy take that job?
Yeah.
Well, because he thinks he can fix it. Because every coach thinks they can fix everything. That's who they are.
Summer is here, which means we're spending more time outside and less time in the kitchen. You don't want to go to the grocery store. That's cutting into your pool time. And you certainly don't want to be cutting vegetables when you could be laying out in the sun. So what do? The other meal prep option. That's not what I wanted to say. Summer is here, and we're spending more time outside and less time in the kitchen. You don't want to go to the grocery store. That's going to cut into your pool time. You also don't want to be stuck cutting vegetables because some other meal delivery service made you cook it yourself. What you need is Freshly. Don't waste your time inside shopping. Don't waste your time cooking. Take advantage of the good weather and Freshly's summer sale, and now you can get $125 off your first 5 orders. Other meal delivery options make you do all the work of prepping and cooking. Freshly comes ready to heat and eat in 3 minutes or less. Designed by nutritionists, prepared by chefs, then delivered right to your door. They've got it all. They've got chicken cordon bleu, wild-caught fish cake, creamy mushroom risotto, Thai green curry, you name it, they got it. Everything I just mentioned, by the way, all that's gluten-free because that's what we have to get in our house. My wife has celiac. We don't want to worry that something's going to be contaminated. And with Freshly, we don't have to. They send it, and we don't have to worry about it. They always come through in a pinch, too, because the kids just love it. You rip it open, you heat it up, they're going to eat it up. Freshly is affordable and convenient, so skip the grocery shopping and the dirty dishes. Your meals arrive cooked and fresh every week. New meals are added weekly, so you're never stuck eating the same thing over and over. And now you can try Freshly for $125 off your first 5 orders. Make summer dinner stress-free with Freshly. Right now, you can get $125 across your first 5 orders at freshly.com/Andy22. That's $125 off across your first 5 orders, freshly.com/Andy22. That's freshly.com/Andy22. So, Cole, I can't let you get out of here without talking about your alma mater and the situation they're in, because I find this to be one of the most strange seasons that I can remember from an SEC school beforehand, just because I don't remember a school ever, and I say school, a group of people kneecapping a coach before a season like this,
right?
Like Auburn did with Bryan Harsin. And, like, if you're Brian Harsin, how do you approach this season given everything that's happened?
With my players, with the media,
Not the media, with the players. My thing is YOLO mode, us against the world. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing you can do.
I think I go to my players and I say, listen, you guys know what I'm about. You guys know how I operate, and nothing that I do is going to change.
Right.
Just because one or two guys hasn't been able to come have breakfast or bourbon with me, or I haven't gone to their lake house, or we hadn't had cigars, or he doesn't like the way I talk, I can't control that.
Right.
Out of my control, out of my hands. But I can help you win football games, and I can help you be a better football player, and I would like to do that. Now, I'll say this. Having said that, when all that went down, there was a self-assessment that needed to take place with Bryan Harsin.
Right.
Not top to bottom, not 80% of him, but a small amount, and I think he did that.
Yeah.
I think he looked in the mirror and said, all right, I probably don't need to ride my assistants as hard. Okay, I probably need to have more personal conversations with my guys. And like you know, that has become more important with college football coaches than ever before.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you have to be transparent, you have to be relatable, you have to be personable, or guys are going to leave.
Well, and that's what I mentioned Sam Pittman earlier, but Sam Pittman, Shane Beamer, guys like that feel like they're built for this era.
There's
like
100% accurate.
You're not leaving their team because you enjoy playing for them.
And think about the guys who we would say are not built for this era.
Oh, yeah.
Do you ever think that we all say, never thought Nick Saban would run spread, never thought Nick Saban would go up tempo?
Now, Nick Saban will adapt,
Never
though.
thought Nick Saban would have lighter defensive linemen and linebackers. Did we ever think Nick Saban, after losing a national championship game, would stop the beginning of a press conference to credit his players publicly, individual players, by the way, publicly, because he knew good and well, when we come back next year, you two are going to lead the way.
Exactly.
And I need more people to be like you.
Yep.
And also, I just want those turds to know the way you acted this year, it ain't going to happen next year.
Exactly.
So go ahead and get ready. He has adapted to become more of what we were describing initially. But if I'm Bryan Harsin, rallying cry.
Yeah.
I don't care what the administration says. I don't care what the booster says. I want to win games with you. You're my guys.
Yeah.
And I think you attack it. And my advice to him tomorrow when he shows up here or when he comes to media days would be face it head on. Hey, it happened. I don't know the people. I don't know why they did it. But honestly, I don't care about it. Because I want to go win football games, and I'm going to coach my team, and that's where. And
can he salvage it from a recruiting standpoint?
That I don't know because honestly, Andy, I don't know exactly where the recruiting needs to be for it to be right. Because I do think that inside he is still sort of more of a developmental coach,
right.
And that's fine. I had a conversation with Mark Stoops earlier, and I asked him because I'm really interested in this. Can you run a developmental program anymore? Because 5 years ago, that's what he told me his program was. Josh Allen didn't have another offer.
Right. And
he was from Andalusia, Alabama, moved to New Jersey, and they said, oh, this kid's 6'6", 260 and can run, and he's flexible. Like, we'll find a spot for you. You know, Kenneth Horsey had, I think, two other
they came in late
G5 offers. So and he said that you can, but it's obviously going to have to be supplemented by high-profile recruits and
I was going to say, I watched Mark Stoops' recruiting, how it's evolved. I mean, the type of player they've been able to sign has changed.
Well, first thing he did, I think he was a little stubborn early on, and he said, no, we're SEC. We got to recruit SEC footprint. And after a couple of years, he was like, well, hold on. I'm a Youngstown guy.
Yeah.
Why am I not going up there where I know everybody?
That
and
pipeline he built
getting
was
the Lynn
tremendous.
Bowdens and all these other guys that come down here, and they can be successful. If Michigan and Ohio State don't want you, how many other Big Ten teams realistically can beat us?
Right.
And you're going to play
and
in
you
the
can
SEC?
come and play in the SEC.
Exactly.
You can play against Alabama. You can play against LSU.
So from the recruiting standpoint, I'll be honest, Andy, I don't know. I do think that some of the guys he's brought in, like Jimmy Brumbaugh, can help and are helping. Zach Etheridge can help, are helping. He's got a former Florida receiver, coach of receivers, who's doing really good things. I know he can from an X's and O's standpoint, from a development standpoint. But I will tell you, I'm not 100% certain on recruiting because that's a very complicated game right now.
And well, especially when the two biggest rivals are coached
doing it better
by
than
the
anybody.
two best recruiters who, and this is the part I think, this is where I think Auburn's administration may have messed up in the hiring process where, you know, I'm sure he's selling his developmental skill and his evaluation skills. You can't out-evaluate and out-develop Nick Saban and Kirby Smart because while they are the two best recruiters, they're also among the best at developing and evaluating. Jordan Davis was not a 5-star recruit.
It's wild to think about, but yeah.
Right. Kirby Smart and his staff saw something in him and said, you need to come here. I mean, because Jordan Davis is probably going to be a North Carolina-type player or a South Carolina-type player. And they saw him and said, no, you can be a first-round draft pick. So,
but I do think that he has made some adjustments with the staff and how he attacks recruiting. And so he is adjusting.
Yeah.
And I think that's a real positive. So I think there's a chance he can get it right. But when you ask some people that question, their answer would be no, because I don't think he can do what Alabama and Georgia are doing. But if he can get it somewhat close and then use that development,
right,
and then use his ability to coach, scheme, draw up game plans. I mean, we've seen nobody thought they were going to be competitive in the Arkansas game, and they go blow them out. Look what they did in the Iron Bowl. I mean,
right.
Who kicked ass and took names in the Iron Bowl for Auburn this year?
Was the D-line
played well at times, but it wasn't like a Cam Newton went out there.
No, it wasn't. There wasn't
26
a star.
of 31
right.
for 380 and 4 touchdowns. A lot of that was, the scheme and what they drew
right.
up and now they executed it.
Yeah.
So you give him credit for that. But so he's proven.
And if you look at
they had a good half against
if you look
Georgia.
at what Georgia did in the national title game against Alabama, they copied a lot of what Auburn had done.
So I think they had that going for them, but it's the recruiting portion is going to be a very challenging road. There's no doubt.
Yeah, it is amazing to me how much of a disconnect there was there in the first year, because at Auburn it is so important, and recruiting has always been very important at Auburn. It's always been something people talk about all the time, and the idea that you could do it without having the same kind of classes as Georgia and Alabama, I just don't think you can.
No, we all think A&M is really close.
Right.
And Jimbo's getting it there. That team won 8 games last year.
Exactly.
It's like we sit there and say, oh, they're knocking on the door. They're knocking on the door. What? They were 8-4.
Right.
So there's just not only are they doing it at such a high level, there's just not many other people that can do it that way, and they damn sure can't replicate it that way. So that's a problem.
Before I let you go, we got to talk about our first SEC Media Days meeting when I thought you were going to kick my ass.
Do we know what year this was?
I don't remember what year. You were working in Huntsville.
Okay.
I was already at SI, so it's post-2008. And
it had to be at least 9 or 10.
Yeah. And you asked a question. It must have been at least 12, because I think you asked a question of Sumlin. And I responded to it on Twitter, because you were like, in my opinion, and you're giving this long diatribe to Sumlin. And I'm like, stop! Don't say in my opinion. Just say your opinion. You're weakening your argument. And you pulled me aside on Radio Row the next day. You're like, I saw you tweeting about me. I'm like, oh no, this is gonna be bad for me.
That was so that would have been before I went to the Swatsky class with ESPN.
Oh, that guy's awesome.
He's amazing. I wish I could go to that class every off season. He taught me how to ask questions. That was an invaluable course. I did not know how to ask questions back then, but it is hilarious that you bring that up, because I see it here, and I see how people treat it here. Andy, that was my playing field. I felt like that room, this is wild to think back on it, but I felt like that was my only space to begin to try and even make a name for myself at all. I felt like no one knew who I was.
Yeah.
Most of the coaches didn't know who I was. I wasn't going to be around the coaches, and I was thinking, all right, I got one shot to try to ask something, do something, be something that maybe someone will remember.
Yep.
And you were correct in what you said. I was
never a dick about it, but yeah.
That's fine. I should never start something I might be familiar with. But I should have never started a question with, this is my opinion, because essentially you're saying, like you said, you're discrediting yourself. But it's weird to think about what that was then for me.
Yeah.
Because I used that as a proving ground.
But you were new at that. You hadn't been doing it. And
oh, no.
That course, by the way, so this guy, he's amazing. I did some journalism seminar at the Poynter Institute years and years ago where I got to take that class.
Yeah.
And it was life-changing.
Unbelievable.
In terms of, like, your career, and you learn how to avoid yes or no questions, which is an obvious thing, but he actually gives you some tips on how to do that.
Yep.
And how to make sure you don't ask 2 questions at once.
No double barrel questions.
Keep the focus where it needs to be. And
some of it though, and this is my favorite Dave Aranda quote: "Common sense is not common." And so
true.
much of what Swatsky teaches is common sense. The main thing is listen.
Yes.
And
90,
he
10.
would show like Barbara Walters, Oprah, Howard Stern, these what we view as, and they are great interviewers, and they're asking double-barrel questions. Or they're asking a question and getting an amazing answer, and then he'll say, but they had their next one scripted, and then he'll play it, and you're like, how did you not follow up on what they just said? Like, they just gave you a whole different direction to go. And all you have to do, all it does is awaken you to think about those things. And if you can think about them, then you have a chance to be pretty good.
Well, the Dave Aranda one's a great example. I did a podcast with him a few months ago, and that's one of those. If you came in with scripted questions, it was gonna get weird, because he is
the samurai.
He's such a smart guy, and so I kind of let him just take me where he was going, and I think it's the best podcast episode we've ever done.
It was good
because he's just so interesting.
He is, and he is. I call him the samurai for multiple reasons, mainly the demeanor. And we would sit down in coaches' meetings with him on Fridays before games, and you ask a question, and it's like, it feels like 8 minutes before he answers it, because first off, he thinks,
right,
and he doesn't care how long it takes. He gives you great answers, and then during his answers, he'll think of another answer, and then he'll give you that. But my favorite thing about Dave Aranda, next game you go to that he's coaching in, when the two teams are warming up, as you know, at the very end of warm-ups before a game, the teams come together, the offense goes against the defense. Watch Dave Aranda.
Okay.
Because he will always be on the other side of the field.
Interesting.
Arms crossed.
Okay.
Staring at the opposition and will not move.
It's it's the best look you get at what they might do.
Absolutely.
That's wow.
And I made the mistake, the second game that I ever had with him, of interrupting him while he was doing it. And I went up to ask him a question, and he just went. I was like, sorry, I get it. My bad. I didn't know that was your thing. I apologize. And I waited, and then we talked. He goes, I didn't mean to blow you off. I was trying to see if that tight end's going to play or how they're going to use him. Is he going to be in line? Is he going to come in?
I love that that's the answer he gave, because most coaches would be like,
get the F out of here.
Get out of here.
I
I'm
don't
busy.
care. No, he apologized for doing it, man, but that's
also,
his demeanor again.
Near perfect recital of movie quotes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, not only does he remember the famous scene, he remembers the 4 or 5 paragraphs of dialogue before and after.
Which is interesting because he has talked to us about being a visual learner. He's a big walkthrough guy. Like, he's probably Jimbo times 20 with the walkthroughs. But he had a big advantage at LSU because they had a walkthrough room.
Right.
If you've never seen this, it actually is really cool. They have a room with turf, and the wall is essentially a video board that you can project that is life-size players.
That's amazing.
So you and I can stand here and look at a video screen of exactly what we're going to see on the field. Not the all 22 or the pit view. It's not a camera looking down.
Yeah, you're looking at
it's right there
visual
in front
representation of the guy who's going to be in front of you.
I think the guys who created Madden helped them
That's incredible.
put this computer program together. And he would tell us, we just got to go walk through, and if we can just see how the tight end moves. And what I try to get is the quarterback's eyes. And when that guard pulls, if he opens all the way, we know we're going to come upfield and attack that. But if he doesn't, I tell my defensive end, don't crash down. Stay home. Play straight up. And that'll give it away every time. And I'm thinking, how does this guy get intensity out of his players? But you love being around him.
Yeah.
He's just amazing to be around.
And he knows what he does well.
Absolutely.
And lets some of those other, the Eric Mateoses of the world, provide the juice. And it's a formula that works. There's a reason they won the Big 12 last year.
Absolutely.
But Cole, I am so happy. I'm glad.
I'm happy I didn't kick your ass at media days.
I'm glad you didn't. I still think we would have become friends. But that it's one of those things where I look at this and you know, you can't say anything like this because you work for these networks. But I look at how they hire, and a lot of the ways they hire is, this person was a really good player. People know their name. We're going to hire this person. And I always ask people, what do you remember about Kirk Herbstreit's Ohio State career? And they'll say, well, he was a quarterback. I'm like, yeah, you don't remember specific games or specific. You know why? Because Kirk Herbstreit was a pretty good college quarterback.
Right.
He's an all-star at talking about football on television. And you didn't win the Outland Trophy. You were a very good college football player.
Above average.
Very good. Above average, yeah. But people didn't know who the center at Auburn was for the most part, the average viewer.
Not even the year we went through 6 in 98.
Exactly.
Definitely didn't know it that year because there were so many you couldn't remember.
But you are great at talking about football on television. And I'm glad that came through and somebody recognized that.
But what you described is my path. I hate and I love when people say, tell me how you got where you are, because I immediately say, you don't have enough time for that. You really don't. But SEC Network was launched. I wasn't a part of it.
Right.
I can remember going to, and these memories come back at certain events. Andy, I can remember going to SEC Media Days in maybe it was 15, and I had auditioned against 3 guys for a studio job at the network. I was living in Decatur, Alabama at the time. We only had my daughter, and she was, I think, 1, so this would have been 6 years ago. And Stephanie Drewley pulled me aside first day, and she said, "You didn't get it." And I was crushed, heartbroken. I thought my career was over. I was like, this is my only shot. And I didn't stay in Birmingham that night. I drove back. I was like, I want to be with my wife and daughter.
Listen, we're all mad we can't be as handsome as Chris Doering. I understand.
It's fair. And so Chris was one of the guys that got one of those jobs.
I know he was.
But there were 2 spots, and I won't go through the other guys that got them, but they are no longer with the SEC network. But thankfully, Ed Placey called me the next day, and he said, hey, we're going to give you some games because Steve Ackles said that he wanted to use me, and they did, and it worked out. But there was no, hey, you come do this.
Yeah.
You know, I did a Mississippi State spring game, and they said, we're just going to leave your microphone open because Dan said he'll talk to you. And I was like, awesome. And I literally said, I just got to go. I'm just putting my foot on the gas. I really don't care what anybody says because Dan said, just follow me around the whole time.
Nice.
And it was like every play, I was like, so, Coach, why did Dad get rid of the ball there? I was like, I'm going to do something.
Yes.
Here. And after the game, the producer, he said, I'm calling Ackles, and I'm going to tell them that they need to do something with you. They need to hire you. And I was like, please,
there
do
you
it.
go.
Let's go.
That's
it was a weird path, but that's why it worked out the way it did because of what you described.
Well, I'm glad it did, and keep making sure the big guys
We're going to
get
try.
that love.
And I'll say this, too. It's definitely not just me. Aaron Taylor, Jeff Schwartz, Mike Golick Jr., Dave Harding was in the media for a little while. There are some other guys that have had a big hand in more people paying attention to the offense. I mean, the fact that Aaron created the Joe Moore Award has helped tremendously. Like I talked to Nick Broker the other day, and yeah, we know each other, but the first thing he said is, our goal this year is to win the Joe Moore Award.
That's amazing.
I'm just like, okay.
And it's the only team unit award in college sports.
Yep. Nick Saban will tell you that every time he talks about it.
And the trophy weighs 1,500 pounds.
It's heavy.
It's incredible. Heavy. Cole Cubelic, thanks so much.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much to Cole Cubelic for joining us. That was a fun conversation. I do love talking about offensive line play, even if I am the size of a safety now. We got a big show for you on Monday. We did the series of rewatchables. Well, actually, that's the Ringer's term for this. We stole the concept from the Ringer. Rewatch party is what we called it, where we watched some of the classic games in recent college football memory. You had the Texas USC Rose Bowl, where Vince Young led the Longhorns to the national title. You had the Michigan State-Ohio State game in 2015. You had the Georgia-Alabama national title game that ended on the 2nd and 26 Tua Tagovailoa to Devontae Smith pass. It was awesome. You guys loved it. You told me you loved it. You said you wanted more. And we were all set to give you more. We were going to tape an episode where Mitch Sherman, Max Olson, and I rewatched the 2009 Texas-Nebraska Big 12 championship game. That was the one that Ndamukong Suh completely dominated, the one where they put an extra second back on the clock at the end to let Texas kick a field goal. It was one of the more controversial games I can remember covering. And we were all 3 of us at the game. So we were all set to relive that game. And then about an hour before we were going to record that podcast, it leaked that USC and UCLA were going to the Big Ten. And so we had to talk about that for a little while. But we have recorded that show now, and it will be in your feed on Monday. It's fantastic. A great trip down memory lane. Some fantastic Brent Musburger commentary during the game. And Mitch and Max just add so much texture to it and context and layers because so much has happened with Nebraska, with Texas since then. And we put it all in context for you. It's a great show. I had an incredible time recording it, and I hope you enjoy listening to it. So get ready for that on Monday, and have a great weekend.